Hi everyone, my name is Phil Hack. I am the co-founder and CTO of A Serious Business Incorporated. Yes, that's really the name. We're the company behind Abbot. Abbot is a chat ops platform for quickly installing a bot into Slack or Discord and being able to automate all kinds of tasks. And today I wanted to show you how to write a skill in C Sharp. And I thought we'd do something fun called Sparkles. If you go to sparkles.aseriousbusiness.com, you'll see that we actually already have a Slack integration for building Sparkle, for doing slash sparkles. And this is a way to give your teammates basically like a kudos, a nice sparkle to, say, hey, you appreciate something they did. But what if the problem with this is that it doesn't work in Discord because it's a Slack extension. But with Abbot, we can build it once and we can have it run in both Slack and Discord. So I'm going to log into my series demos Slack, and you can see here this is the main MyBot screen. This shows up if you have at least one skill, otherwise you get this welcome screen. And we have a console here where you can run chat commands in case your chat is down. And we're going to go here, create new skill, C Sharp. And the way I like to write skills is this is the editor, and what's cool is we have full IntelliSense here. We have full there we go. So yeah, and I like to sketch out the way I think this command is gonna work. So give people sparkles, emoji supported there, and let's describe the usage. This is sort of a pseudo markdown supported thing, so we can just say, so if you do Abbot Sparkle gives a random, oh no, actually, let's not do that. Abbot Sparkle, and then as a convention, we use these brackets to denote arguments. And so at users, meaning like you have to mention them. And this will give that user a sparkles point. But you might want to specify a reason to give them a sparkle. So we'll use that user, give that user a sparkles point. Let's give it for reason. For the specified reason. Okay. And then you might want to, we need a way for you to see what all the sparkle points for our users. So we'll say, we'll invert this for at user gets the sparkles, and use, instead of at user, you can say use me for your own. So if you want to see who sparkled you and for why, you can do that at sparkle for me. And then lastly, we need to know who are the leaders. So show the leaderboard for sparkles. Okay, so we sketched out the usage. Let's go ahead and create the skill. The reason why we want to save the skill is that this gives us the saves it in our database, which is important, but also gives access to managing secrets. So if you have certain secrets that your skill needs, in this case, we're not going to need any secrets. Triggers are really cool. We can talk about that later, but you could schedule a skill to run on a task where you could have a skill respond to an external HTTP request. So like if you want to hook, support GitHub webhooks, for example. And then proxy links is a way for you to have a URL that has an embedded, let's say, API token that you do not want to expose to anyone else and you want to be able to reuse. We're not going to need any of those for this skill. Let's erase the code. This skill is going to be pretty simple. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to deconstruct the bot.arguments into a set of parameters that we know we're going to need. So if I've written a blog post on hacked, HAACKED.com about tuple deconstructions with bot arguments. So we do some clever things in here that make it so that you don't ever hopefully have to write a regular expression. Proposition arg. So we're going to bot that argument. So this is going to take all the arguments and deconstruct them into 3 parameters. Now you'll notice that these 3 parameters will handle most of the cases, but sometimes they won't, and we'll just sort of rearrange the arguments in those cases. You'll see what I mean. So the first case, let's look at if you just say sparkle liters. And one thing to note is that bot.arguments is a collection. You can get the full string of the arguments by calling bot.arguments.value. But in our case, let's look at the first case where you only passed liters. And the arguments do not include the skill name, so it's everything after sparkle. So if user arg is not, and we have these types here. So the user arg is not a mention argument. So if you had mentioned a user as the first argument, it would be a mention argument. And we can use this, we can use C# pattern matching here and say, and it matches that the value of the argument is liters. And let's be nice and say, you know what, maybe you thought it was liter board. We'll support that as well. And then I'll return here, await bot.reply async, ... We'll get back to this. So let's put a to-do here, get the leaderboard. Okay, so that handles the liters argument. Now the next step is most of the cases you're going to have the user arg actually be a mention. So if user arg is I mention argument. Notice here that we're getting IntelliSense getting help there because I can't remember anything. So we'll use pattern matching to set, if it is a mention argument, it will capture that in the mention variable. And so actually I like using our comments here to remind me what I'm doing. So PMN, here we go. And this would be Abbot, Sparkle, Leaders. So in this case, let's handle the case where you just mentioned the user without a reason. So if reason arg is I missing argument, that means that they didn't specify that, then we know that we can add a sparkle to user without reason, for no good reason. But let's say, you notice here that I have this preposition arg, that sort of matches the for here. So let's check that case. If preposition arg is value for, and reason arg is not missing, then we've been given a reason, right? Abbot Sparkle at PMN for being swell. And then to do add Sparkle to user with reason. Okay, I'm just gonna modify that. Okay, great. So lastly, we need to be able to retrieve your own score and other scores. So here's where it gets interesting, because in this case, user arg wouldn't actually be a user arg. It's actually going to be a mention arg. I named it that because that's the most common case. But if user arg is value for, then we must be retrieving the score for somebody. And let's look at the 2 cases. Retrieve the score for user. We'll deal with those two cases a little bit later. I'm just kind of sketching out the structure of the skill. And finally, if we get here, Abbot didn't understand what the user is trying to do. So we'll just give a generic message, await bot.reply async. You notice that we're using all async methods. And it's important that a skill always reply with at least one message. And we can say, sorry, I didn't understand that. Oh, let's not forget, we're going to use string interpolation here. And now it's possible to rename, that people can rename their bots. So if you use at bot, we'll always show the bot's name that we know. Help Sparkle. And let's format that as code to learn how to sparkle. Now, you notice here that I hard-coded the names there. We need to add support for this token in the usage. We're just not there yet. Okay, great. So we're here. Let me save this. You can hit Control S or Command S on a Mac, and when you're in the editor, and that saves everything. You don't have to click that save button each time. So now let's start thinking about our data model so we can start implementing these methods, right? So what I want to have is a Sparkle class, public class Sparkle, and we need to know the one who sparkles, public string sparkler. Now I'm using it, we could actually store the full user object, but really all we need is the formatted identifier, because this is the, when you get a user object and you call toString on it, we actually format the user's ID for the specific platform, whether it's Slack or Discord. And that's the only thing we really need to store. In my case, I'm not going to store the sparkly, the one who sparkled, because that's actually going to be the key when I actually store it in the brain. And I'll talk about that in a second. So the reason for which one is sparkled, public string, oops, I don't know why it does that. Reason, I'll have to see if that's a setting, but we're using code mirror and mirror sharp, and it keeps wanting to make that a capital S. I bet I can find out to fix that. Now, there's some other properties we may want to add so that we know them, but we're not going to use them just yet, at least out of the scope of this. Maybe by the time you see this finished skill, you'll see it. But the room, public string room, get set. And whoa, need to learn how to type. Okay. And then what else might we want to know? Well, probably when it happened. The date, more or less, at which one is sparkled. Room in which one is sparkled. Now I'm a little bit over commenting this so that when people see this later, they can understand what we were thinking about. But I think these names are pretty self-explanatory. Now, you notice here I'm just using a date time because we don't really care the exact time, but Abbot actually, the C# skill runners actually have support for nota time. So you could do a proper current instance and then translate it to whoever's viewing it, local time zone or the time zone of the sparkly, however you wanted to do it. So we have support for all that. That's out of scope. We could be here all day writing this skill if I wanted to handle that right now, but I'll leave that as an exercise to the reader. Now we have this class, so we need to think about how we're going to store sparkles. And the way I thought we'd do that is we use the ID of the user that's being sparkled, the sparkly, so to speak, and we will use that as a key, and we'll just store a list of all the sparkles in that key. So let's add a method to Sparkle. Public async task, Sparkle async. Now, for some reason, normally I'm a semicolon on their own lines, but when I'm writing skills, and I also did this in my Razor views, I tend to use the JavaScript style. I don't know why, I just do. So we got sparkly. We're going to have quite a few arguments here, so I'm going to put them each on their own line. Let me scroll. Oop. Oh, that was too much. What have I done? Okay. Let's see, what's next? We need to know who is this sparkler. We want to know the room, and we want to know the reason, but the reason is optional. And I'll fix up the strings. Now, it's technically correct, but I prefer to use the primitive type name or whatever you call it when it's all lowercase. I know the answer, but I just forgot. All right, here we go. So what do we need to do? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to grab all the sparkles from the brain. So sparkles equals await bot.brain.get async, and we have a get as async list of sparkle, and we're going to use the sparkly.toString as the key. But let's take this. So we're going to need this in two places. So let's take this and put it in its own method. Public async task list sparkle. You'll see why soon. Get sparkles async and at chat user sparkly. Sparkly. All right. So now we can just return this, and if it's null, we're going to want to just new up a list. Okay. Now I can go and replace that other call with this. And we don't need the toString here. Okay, so this is going to grab all the sparkles. So the way that data is stored, you can store it with a key, and then you can store basically any object associated with that key. And we JSON serialize that object, store it in the database, and then you can just retrieve it. So you want to think about it, how you want to store the data. We could have created just one big object and stored it, but I find that it's better to store individual buckets with their own key. Makes things a little faster and less room for conflicts. Okay, now that we have the sparkles, we're going to create a new sparkle. Equals new sparkle. And I got to say, I've been writing skills in JavaScript and C#, and it's so much more fun with C# right now in Abbot because of the IntelliSense. We're trying to make the JavaScript experience and Python experience better, but for now, the C# experience is really great. Okay, we're going to store all this information even though we might not use it just yet. Datetime.now. Okay. And then now I've created that instance, so let's sparkles.add. We'll add it. And then we need to write it back into the brain. So await bot.reply. Bot.brain.write. And we'll sparkles. Oh, we need to give it the key. which is sparkly.toString, and then sparkles. And don't forget, you can see here it's telling us, hey, don't forget the semicolon. Great, let's save that. Okay. One thing I forgot to mention here is we have this bot where you can console where you can test things out. So if I go like this for now, sorry I didn't understand Abbot Health Sparkle. That's the only thing we support so far. So that's what we would expect. That's great. It's working. So now that we have a method to get sparkles and to add a sparkle or create a sparkle, let's start to flesh out these things. So the first one, we're going to skip the leaderboard because that's the most complex one. Let's do the mentioning. So here you sparkle someone without a reason. So that's pretty straightforward. All we have to do is sparkle them. Await sparkle async. Await sparkle async. Now, this mention has a mentioned property. That's the actual chat user that was mentioned. And then the sparkler is always the bot.from, the person sending the message. And then you can add bot.room to get the room name. That's it. That's pretty easy. And then now we need to reply, reply async, because remember, always reply. Bots always reply. So what we can say is mention.mentioned gets a sparkles. Yay! And then we can get rid of this to do. We're done. I'm going to save that. And as we're saving it, we're building up the history of this. So you can click history, see each version. We don't yet support this, things like that, but that's on the roadmap. Okay, now let's handle the case where you have a reason. We can pretty much copy this code. And you're probably thinking, oh, you should make that a little more, little less code duplication. And you are absolutely right. But for now, this is good enough. Reason arg.value. Again, I'll leave that as an exercise for the reader to simplify that code. So for reason arg.value. Okay, so okay, there we go. Remember, we're using string interpolation here, so it's saying it'll reply, hey, you get this person gets a sparkle for this reason. And we can remove that comment. Let's save that. Okay. Now we need to do something a little more tricky here, which is we want to retrieve the scores for the user. So this is where user arg is actually 4. Now we expect the preposition arg to be either me, the word me, or either the user. So let's we're gonna, and then if it's me, we use bot.from because that's the person sending it. So let's here we'll actually combine it. So var sparkly equals, so if the preposition arg is an IMention argument, user, then we will use the user.mention, we'll set sparkly to user.mentioned. So that's a case where you're saying, hey, Abbot, sparkle for @user, @hacked, @pmn. Otherwise, we're going to use, we're going to check if the preposition arg is value of me, then we will use bot.from. Otherwise, we'll just set the sparkly to null. And that way, if sparkly is not null, and let's move this into that conditional, because if it is null, then someone's trying something we did not understand, we'll let it fall through to the final case. Okay. Okay, so if sparkly is not null, let's get all their sparkles. And now you can see why we created that method ahead of time. And we're going to format this as a list, a markdown list. And fortunately, we have a nice method for that. But first, let me write a helper method here. And I'm just going to add I like to do all my helpers and classes below, all um, all the procedural code that's going to respond to the thing. So I'm going to go all the way down here, and we're going to create a string. In fact, I made all these publics, but I think they could actually just be private methods. I don't think they need to be public because they're private to um, this skill. So format sparkle. So this is gonna take a sparkle and format it so that we can report it back to the user. So let's think about this. So first we want to get the reason. So var reason equals sparkle, whoops, equals sparkle dot. I'm a little overzealous here. Equals. I want the lowercase sparkle dot reason. There we go. So basically, let's check if the length of the reason is greater than 0. We know this makes it so we don't have to check if it's null or empty. If its length is 0, we know greater than 0, we know it's not null. Then we want to grab the sparkle.reason. Okay. Otherwise, what do we want to do? We'll just say no reason in particular. That seems like a good default reason. And then we want to return a interpolated string where we say sparkles from sparkle dot sparkler for reason. Okay, so this is how we'll format each sparkle. Now I can go back up to here and we can, excuse me, we can now generate our string list. So we have a list. If we highlight var, we see we have a list of sparkles. And so we want to make that into a list of strings. So we can say var sparkle list equals sparkles dot select. We'll just pass in format sparkle. And then there's this helper method that we provide to markdown list. So it's going to format that as a markdown list, and then we can just await bot.reply async, and we'll say sparkles, here's who sparkled sparkly. We'll give a new line, and then we'll sparkle list that. Oh, and looks like I need to. Okay, let's save our work here. We're getting pretty far here. So let's test this out. Let's see where we are so far. So in here, I could say sparkle hacked, sparkle pmn. Okay, maybe it's not working in here for some reason. Let's try it in chat. So I have this hack demo room, and let's see if it's working in here. If it's not, then, so first I like to ping Abbot to make sure it's alive and responding. Okay, Abbot, sparkle. Oh, maybe it's because the username is not matching. Ah, that's it. Okay, so we can see that it is working. The trick is that in the console, we don't actually have your username, so it has to match whatever the system is expecting. So one thing I could do is I could do a dash dash debug. I think that might work here. Yes, and that's going to say, oh, at Phil. So let's go back to the here. Sparkle at Phil. Hey, and that works. And you notice here, you can see the actual formatting that we're actually sending to the chat, and that gets interpreted by Slack appropriately. Okay, so now let's take a look at the Sparkle at Phil for being a champ. Thank you. Now let's say Sparkle for Phil, and we can see all our sparkles. Great. All right, we're at the final lap here. Let's implement the Sparkle leaders. So here we're going to grab all the sparkles from the database, or from the brain, excuse me. Well, all the sparkles equals, and we have a method for this, bot.brain.get all. This will get everything stored in the brain for this skill. So the brain is partitioned per skill, per org, of course. So this will get all the data that's stored for this skill in this org. There's no crossover data. And now we're going to write a pretty complex thing here, because what we want to do is, let's get the leaders equals. I'm going to start with all sparkles. I could probably do a group by, but I'm just going to use a dictionary because I'm familiar with that. And what I'm going to do is, first for the item key, the key of the dictionary, we actually just want the key. All sparkles is a collection of iSkill data item, which you can examine. And then the value is item. Now the item dot value is a dynamic, so you could just start to hit dot right into it. Makes it really convenient. But if you want strong typing, which I like, you can just cast it to as list sparkle. We're gonna and then call the count property of that. So now that gives us a dictionary of the key, which is the person being sparkled, and the count of sparkles. And now we can dot into that dictionary and order by descending. And remember, a dictionary is a collection of key value pairs. So key value pair, we want to order by the value, which is the count. And then let's, just in case there's a lot, we'll just take the top 10. And then we're going to select out what we're going to say each time. So KVP, how we're going to present the leaders. So we'll do KVP dot key with KVP dot oh, I was like, why am I not getting IntelliSense? Because KPV is not the same as KVP. So KVP dot value sparkles pluralized. Okay, so that would probably say like fill with 12 sparkles, things like that. And then we'll use, once again, the magic to markdown list method, and we can just reply back with that whole thing. And there it is, leaders. Let me save that. And let's try sparkle leaders. Hey, I'm winning with 4 sparkles, great. Now, let's go into Slack and see what it looks like. If I go at Abbot Sparkle Leaders, you can see that it looks nicely formatted. Phil Hack with 4 sparkles. Yay! You know what? I'm feeling generous. I should sparkle my colleague. I don't know why he's in here twice. Paul for being in here twice. And Abbott Sparkle Leaders. We can see that he will now be listed. Paul with 1 sparkle, but I'm winning, which is the important thing. Okay, now this is kind of a useful skill. Maybe other people would like to use it. So I can go over here, click Publish Package, and describe what this package is. This is a skill for giving your friends and colleagues sparkles. Actually, let's use sparkles. And this is the initial version as seen on YouTube. Publish that package, give you a little bit of a summary of the changes, and go ahead and publish this. Okay, great. Package version 1.0. Now, if I go to, packages, we can see Sparkle in here by Serious Demos. I probably should have created that from our actual one, but it is what it is. And maybe by the time you watch this video, I'll have done that. But the reason I did that is, let me log out of here. And it turns out I also have a Discord account. So I'm going to log in with Discord. And let me make sure I'm logging into the right Discord. Yes, we're going to log into Abbot. And I'm a member of 3 Discords, so I got to pick which one. So we'll go to Abbot here. And then I'm going to go to the package manager, and I'm going to click Sparkle, install the package. Now I can edit the package, I can edit the code, I can review it, I can edit it. Whoops, darn it, before I install it. But if you edit it, then upgrades will be impacted because obviously if you upgrade to the latest version, if there's ever any new changes, then you will lose any customization. So, and you can see here we have a warning. Any change you make to the skill can cause problems later. All right, so let's switch over to Discord. And hey, Abbot, are you live? Oh no. Okay, well that's great. Let's see if Sparkle works. Sparkle, a hack for encountering a bug in a recorded demo. Hey, and then is there Abbot, Sparkle, Paul, for being my colleague. Yeah, I'm very creative about these. And then Abbot, Sparkle, leaders. Sweet. Now the key thing to notice here is that you didn't have to know about the differences between Slack and Discord, but this skill works in both. And that's one of the things that we work really hard to make happen, which is that we work for each platform. We handle all the differences. We try to take care of that for you so you don't have to worry about it. In any case, now, if you're watching this video, you can go into Abbot, go into Packages, and you will see Sparkle created by Serious Demos, and you can install it and use it. So I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope you install Abbot, try it out, give us feedback. You can use the feedback skill, so you can just say at Abbot feedback, hey, this is cool. And then that will send us feedback, and we can make Abbot better for you. And go out there and write some skills and publish them as packages. Thank you for watching.